The guy who owed my boss money didn't pay up. Something else collected. I'm gonna keep this story brief. For legal reasons, I won't be able to disclose my line of work and who I work for, but let's just say I work in waste management, and my boss and coworkers are all a bunch of tough guys. Real old-school New Yorker types. If you guessed by now what I do for a living, then congratulations. What do you want, a reward or something, wise guy? Moving on. You see, although I don't really want to blow my own horn, I'm kind of a tough guy too. I'm pretty tall and have a wide frame, so my boss saw to it that I worked as muscle. I would do all sorts of jobs, such as driving important people in the company around and protecting them as well. But the job in which I truly shine the brightest is when my boss sends me to rough people up. I became so good at that particular sector that I'm always my boss's go-to when he needs a particular message sent. The usual agenda for me is shakedowns. My boss sends me over to people who've gotten a little too stubborn and often forget their places in this world. I usually serve as a firm reminder. These people all have some kind of beef with my boss, whether it be getting a little too cocky, stepping on the wrong toes, knowing too much, or owing my employer some moolah. The last one is the usual case, since there's lots of degenerate gamblers and junkies out there who've become too desperate for cash and had the genius idea of borrowing from us. I've seen my fair share of violence, not that I'm bragging about it. Just saying that broken bones and spilled blood is just common working hours to me. You get used to it, I suppose. Why am I telling you this? It's because in all my years doing all sorts of horrible shit to other human beings, there is one particular job, one fateful night, that shook me to my very soul. I will tell you about that job now. One night I was sitting at home, staring at my wall like some kind of lobotomite. Sometimes I'd space out and do this, so judge me, I don't care. Doing this kind of thing calms my mind. It has a nice therapeutic effect to it. My phone started ringing. It was my coworker. I picked it up and pressed it to my ear gently. "Yeah," I said quietly as I continued to stare blankly at the wall. "Boss got a job for you. I'll send you the address. You know the rest," the aged raspy voice said on the other end before hanging up. 2 pings on my notifications. I got the details of the job, such as a name and other info, and the pin on Google Maps. This was how jobs went these days. No more beating around the bush. Straight to the point, just the way I like it. By this point, everyone already knew the tune and how to dance to it. I wouldn't have it any other way. I got ready for the job quickly. I put my jacket on, grabbed my keys, wallet, and phone, but most importantly, I grabbed my piece. It was a Glock 17, no fancy mods or anything. I never leave home without it. I slipped my piece into my pants waistband and unlocked my car, walking in. The nights I work, I preferred to keep the windows open to feel the night's cool breeze right into my face. The radio was always on, playing whatever the hell was on the stations. This night had a particularly cold, wet, and damp feel to it. It just rained, and I could feel the low temperature of the weather all over the inside of the car. Wherever the app was taking me was way deep into the bad part of town, the part where even I hesitate to visit at times. Through the poorly lit streets where the lights are out and only my car's headlights are cutting through the pitch-black darkness. Through the tight turns and twists, I finally arrived at the location. The house was medium-sized, looked old and run down. All the lights are off. Kinda looked like nobody was home too, but my guy told me someone's always home. I stepped out of the car and closed the door slowly. I locked it and walked up to the curb. You know that feeling you get when your entire body freezes up and every nerve in you is telling you to stop, to turn back, to not go through with it? I never felt that my entire life, but this particular night, that specific feeling hit me, and it hit me hard. I shook it off, being the stubborn bastard I am, and treaded on. It was my job and I had to do it. Today's client is James Morelli, but we call him Jimmy. The little rat always run into money problems because he's an incredibly high-maintenance fuck with lots of vices and eccentric hobbies to fuel. He usually pays but never on time. We have to rattle him a little bit each time to squeeze the cash out of him. This particular time, though, old Jimmy's been ducking our calls, He's been past due for 3 months already and he owes my boss 50 grand. My boss doesn't take kindly to being ignored, especially if you owe him that much money. I walked up to the door and banged on it with force. Jimmy, open up. It's under threat. I yelled as I banged but got no answer. Open the fuck up or I'm kicking this down. I yelled again as I grabbed the doorknob in an attempt to jiggle it. To my surprise, my hand turned the knob in one swift motion and pushed the door open with a noisy creaking noise. This was a little weird to me considering. Jimmy was a paranoid recluse who hid from even his closest friends and family, and who in their right mind would leave their front door unlocked in a neighborhood like this at this time of the night? I thought maybe somebody had broken in or something. I peered into the doorway and saw absolute darkness inside the house. Just pitch blackness with nothing in sight, just the outline of furniture and what else? I tried turning the lights on from the switch next to the door, but nothing happened. This definitely convinced me he wasn't home. Maybe he skipped town or something to run away from his debts. Regardless, I had to confirm. I walked over to my car and opened the passenger side door. I grabbed this long flashlight from under the seat and started walking back to the house. As I walked into the doorway, I turned my flashlight on and shined it throughout the living room. Place was a fucking mess. The furniture and wallpaper are all worn out and there were trash and food wrappers scattered everywhere. It looked more like a spot where junkies gathered to do their business than somebody's actual home. I walked around to investigate and some rats started skittering away when I stepped on some trash. It was the most repulsive environment I've ever been in all my years of living. Before I could explore around the house more, I heard some scratching in the basement area. It sounded like there was somebody down there. I drew my pistol and held it tightly as I shined my flashlight down the basement stairs. I knew for sure I might regret this because that strange hesitating feeling came back and stronger this time. I walked down the basement stairs slowly, each step a creak from the rotting wood, each breath of mine very audible from the dead silence that enveloped the house. I walked down until I reached the bottom. I shined my flashlight into the basement area. It was wider than I would have thought, and the scene horrified me. The basement smelled wrong. Not just the usual mildew and dust kind of wrong, but sweet, like spoiled fruit left out in the sun too long. My shoes stuck to the concrete with every step, each one making a wet, peeling sound. The light bulb overhead swung on its cord, throwing jittery shadows across the walls. That's when I saw it. The walls weren't walls anymore. They were covered in layers of meat. Human, maybe. Sheets of skin hung like old wallpaper, still glistening in spots. Nails, teeth, and scraps of hair were embedded in the pulpy mess, as if whoever did this had run out of space to throw their leftovers. In the middle of the room, Jimmy was on his knees, naked, skin slick with blood that wasn't all his. He was muttering in a language that made my bones shiver while he carved symbols into his own skin with a broken shard of glass. A circle of similar symbols had been carved into the concrete, filled with something dark red and shiny that rippled like oil. Candles burned, but their flames bent toward the center, as if gravity worked different inside the circle. The red liquid surged upward like it was alive, forming hands first, then claws, then a face that wasn't a face at all, just a gaping mouth lined with teeth that never stopped and eyes that always stared. The thing stepped out like it was peeling itself from another dimension. Jimmy didn't scream, didn't fight. He just tilted his head back, arms spread, and the thing bit down. Not like a shark, more like a wood chipper. His head went first, his body folding into that mouth in chunks, bones snapping like wet twigs and flesh and muscle being torn like paper. I stood there watching it all unfold. I wasn't sure if I shat my pants already at that point, but I'm leaning on the thought that maybe I did. I was frozen in place as I watched that thing devour Jimmy whole, not even spitting the bones out after swallowing. My legs were trembling and my breath was stuck in my throat. Then, it looked at me. When it turned its head to face me, every nerve in my body started firing up, and by sheer instinct, I immediately drew my weapon and started firing at the creature. I dumped my entire 17-round mag right into the thing's face as I screamed the whole time, hoping that would have killed it, but unfortunately, it didn't. Its gaping mouth full of teeth curled up into a bit smile as its many eyes stared at me. It started laughing and laughing until it suddenly lunged at me, grabbing my leg. I let out a yelp as it grabbed me, and I struggled to get loose from its grip. I tried to pull my leg out to no avail. I looked around for anything that could help me and found a hatchet leaned on the basement stairs. I swiftly grabbed the hatchet and chopped at the creature's limb with primal force. I swung over and over and over until the limb came off entirely and the creature screamed in a distorted voice out of pain. I ran up the basement stairs and fumbled all around the house as that thing chased me. I tripped on things and struggled through the trash in the dark, but I managed to locate the front door and the moonlight peering into the house from it. I was able to run directly for it before the creature could grab me in the darkness, and I was able to jump into my car after throwing the door open. I quickly drove away, never looking back at that godforsaken fucking house. The next day after that shit show, I told my boss everything that happened in complete sincerity, and he never called me crazy or made fun of me. He looked me dead in the eyes and told me with a straight face, Jimmy owed money to something else, simple as that, as he quickly resumed back to his paperwork. I've never been a religious man, but these days I've been going to church every Sunday and praying to the Lord. I sleep with a Bible under my pillow and I pray every night before going to bed, rosary and all. Sometimes I think of gathering some of my coworkers and going back to that house with lots of guns, maybe set that fucking place on fire and shoot whatever comes out.